Welcome to a Road Less Traveled podcast. I am your host, Hilary Haron, and today with us we have Esmerelda Soria. Please give me your official title.
So I'm the Assemblywoman for District 27.
Can you tell us what area you cover?
So my district is very big. The southernmost western point of it is the city of Kalinga, going all the way to Santa Nela by Los Banos area, and then moving eastern into Delhi and into the city, down into the city of Fresno. Marks Avenue is kind of my eastern boundary. So it's a very large district.
You have a lot of area to cover.
Yeah.
Probably takes up a lot of time, especially when you're in district.
Yeah.
How did you get to deciding this is what you wanted to do? How did you get on this road?
Yeah, well, that's a really good question, and I'm grateful that I have an opportunity to share with you. So I started in my public service journey essentially right out of college. I went to UC Berkeley. I grew up in the city of Lindsay, and so a lot of kind of the purpose and the drive that has really taken me to where I'm at today comes from the family that I grew up in. My parents came here to this country from Mexico in the 1970s, like many immigrant families, right? And all immigrant families that even established this country with the wanting to achieve that American dream. And so they instilled in us hard work, getting our education, and then never forgetting where we came from and giving back. And so those were just some of the fundamental things that I always carried with me. And so as a kind of first generation, my parents were farm workers growing up. I was very motivated to have a different life, not to do the hard work that they did. And so I went to UC Berkeley. And so that's where I spent about 5 years. I got to do lots of different things, internships. I even went to Washington, D.C. And during my time in Berkeley, I guess developed an awareness of that there were things that I could do personally to empower myself to be able to advocate on behalf of my community. And, you know, growing up in this very small, rural, disadvantaged community, I saw a lot of the challenges, but I also recognized the opportunities. And so after college, I applied to a fellowship in Sacramento, and I had the great fortune of working for a state senator. And so that was kind of my first, experience in getting insight as to what happens, in those four walls of the state capitol. It is a really nice building, but I don't think people realize how much work happens there, and it could be good or bad. And I wanted to make sure that that experience helped me decide where I would go in the future. I never thought that I would be an assembly member at that point, but I did know that being in the public policy, making laws, was the space that I really thrived in and that I enjoyed, because I felt like communities like ours in the Valley needed to have a seat at the table and a voice. And so that always kind of inspired me to be involved in the community and see that there's pathways where we can be involved and influence policies and how laws are made and how investments are made at the state level. And so that really kind of was the beginning of my journey. And then, a few years later, after law school, I ended up moving back to the Valley. I worked for Senator Michael Rubio as his district director, then had the opportunity following there working for Assemblymember Henry T. Perea in his district office. And during that time, there was a vacancy that happened in the city council. And I was encouraged by folks here in the city of Fresno to consider that. And that would be my first elected office. It was here in the city of Fresno. And what motivated me, kind of going back to my experience being in Sacramento, was having a seat at the table. And at the city council at that time, there were no women. There were no women on the council, and I always felt that the women's perspective was very critical to the policy discussions that related to what the city was doing, the investments it's making in the community. And so I said, yeah, I'm going to do it. And I was not supposed to win. I wasn't the favored candidate, But
who gets to decide that? The voters decide
the
that.
voters
You were
decided.
obviously the favorite
The
candidate.
voters decided, but at the time, right, the like political pundits, I was a newcomer. I wasn't born and raised here in Fresno, but born and raised in the Valley, and so there was a lot of obstacles I had to overcome. But nevertheless, the voters decided that they would give me a shot, and then I got reelected again, and so I spent 8 years on the council. And after spending 8 incredible years on the council doing some amazing things for the city and for the neighborhoods that I represented, I wanted to be able to continue that. And so that's how I ended up then deciding to run for the state assembly seat, to continue that work that I had started here in the city of Fresno.
On behalf of women up and down the Central Valley, thank you for your service, for giving us all a voice at the table. And I'm guessing that a lot of the tables that you have had the opportunity to sit at look very much the same. Not necessarily as you, but as each other. Like everybody else looks the same. And so you've had a really great opportunity to provide that perspective. Are there times where you have felt like just getting up and walking out, giving up, throwing the water across the table and taking off?
I have endured some difficult times in my journey. Absolutely. There's been times where I'm like, man, is this all worth it? Right? Because it doesn't pay well. And there's a lot of criticism or, just in the space that you're in. I will say it's a contact sport. So yeah, absolutely. There's been those days where it's like, man, do I really want to continue to do this? But I think I'm consistently reminded, my mom always told me, to whom much is given, much is required. And I do feel that even though I didn't grow up in a well-off family, that much has been given to me in terms of opportunity, and that I need to continue to be able to provide that to other people in our community. And also, when I think about my role as a leader in the community, I want to make sure that there's young girls that say, hey, if Esmeralda got elected, I know that I can do it too. Because a lot of times, I always say, sometimes you can't be what you can't see. And so for me, that has always been important as part of my journey, to make sure that there are other women coming behind me and that I can inspire young little girls that will one day say, I want to be like her. I want to be able to sit at that council seat. I want to go to the state assembly. I want to be the next president of the United States.
Your mother sounds like a very wise woman, and she has clearly given all of that wisdom directly to you. When it comes, you were talking about the next generation and coming up and, wanting to encourage more women to come into that space. Do you have opportunities often to mentor other people who maybe want to take that path? Or do you hear often women saying, I want to take that path? Or do you kind of have to encourage them to get involved?
I'm big on mentorship and taking, women that are interested, like under my wing, because I think that we owe it to the next generation to ensure that we don't just do our work, but that we're making sure that there's a continuation of the work that we start. So that's always been important for me. When it comes to running for office, I will tell you, it's really hard to get women to run. And what is interesting, and no, the thing is, I think there's like data that shows that women have to be asked like dozens of times to do something in terms of leadership. And it's not just for elected office, but for elected office, similarly, women, it takes women a lot longer to think about whether they want to do it, or whether they're qualified to do it, which is so interesting. That was, a thing that I contemplated too. But when I think about my education and my experience and what I can bring to the table, and I think about, people that I served with, I was like, man, I'm way more educated, and I'm like, why is it that I consistently doubt that I have the ability to do it when there are maybe my male counterparts never think about that. They're just like, hey, I'm going to do it. And I'm like, oh, I don't know if I'm smart enough or if I'm ready or if it's the right time. And so there's a lot of considerations that I feel women go through before making the decision. And that's why you don't see still, like even in the city council today, there is one woman, and I'm glad that there was a woman that took my spot.
100%.
Yeah, but there's never been more than one woman on the city council in the history of the city at a time. And there's only been 8 women elected in office in the city of Fresno on that council.
Do you know the age of the city? When was the city? Do you
Over
happen to know?
100 years. Yeah. So you know, when we think about that, right, there's a lot of work to do to ensure that locally there are more women saying, hey, I can do it. I'm ready to take, you know, this role. But it is, you know, there are a lot of sacrifices and challenges that come with running for office. I will say that I'm very proud that in the state of California, at the state level, we are beginning to see more parity. This year, we celebrated that women represent 40% of the state Senate and the Assembly, which is phenomenal.
That's incredible.
Both Democrats and Republicans were 40%. We have a Democratic Legislative Caucus, and we are very proud that it is the largest women's caucus in the history of California.
That's awesome.
So, you know, that's how we begin to kind of change the trend and to get parity.
Well, and California is a little bit more progressive than other places, and some to its credit, some to its fault. And we've visited in the Capitol, and it was incredible to see all the women's names on, you know,
On the doors, yeah.
on the big giant thing. What would you say to women who are afraid to get involved? Afraid to, I mean, not necessarily to run for office, but are afraid to even get involved to advocate for themselves?
Yeah. I think that we all provide value, and that if you find it in yourself that you want to give in a positive way, it doesn't necessarily have to be an elected office. It can be a board of a nonprofit, and God knows that we need just people to step up to serve in nonprofit boards. We even need women in the private sector, in the corporate boards, because there are not as many. And I know that there's been efforts at the state level to get more transparency, to really encourage even, you know, big corporations to include more women in these corporate boards. And I think, you know, those are all tables that we should be at. And so, you know, I encourage folks to, if you know of someone that is on a board or even in elected office, like, reach out to them. And people get flattered when, you know, you reach out to them and say, like, you want to know, like, how they got there, how to do it. And I think people are willing, and, you know, especially if it's a woman, they'll be willing to share, like, hey, how you too can give of your time and of your service.
Have you had any women, other than your very wise mom, who were great mentors to you that helped usher you along, or who really kind of propped you up when you felt like maybe you wanted to turn around and go home?
Oh, yeah, no, I have an incredible just group of women kind of all over that support me. You know, when it comes to family, obviously, my mom is number one, and then my sisters, who also are leaders in their own right. 2 of them are in elected office. One sits on a school board, the other one sits on the hospital district. Again,
Amazing.
kind of, you know, going back to what my mom taught us, right? Never forgetting where we came from and giving back. And then just along my professional journey, I've had women that have, you know, mentored me. You know, I will mention one, Martha Guzman, who when I was in law school, I worked for her for a nonprofit organization, and she kind of took me under her wing and helped me in, you know, kind of as a young professional and in my journey, and then has been extremely supportive, you know, through my time now as I've been in elected office. You know, she was appointed by Governor Brown to the CPUC, and then now was appointed by President Biden to be the EPA Regional 9 Director. And so someone in her own right that has also, you know, risen as a woman leader. And so, but she, you know, was someone that kind of took me under her wing during my time as a young professional. But there's just been, you know, for me, a whole host of women that I've been able to lean on that have supported me as I went through my different election cycles. And some of them are connected to, I did a leadership program right before I got elected. It's called HOPE, and this is a leadership program focused on Latinas. And so out of that cohort, it was like 20 some Latinas from all over the state of California. I can call any one of them at any given time when, you know, there's issues that I have or need support, and they're incredible women. That are just there to, you know, support. I think it's important for us to lean in and know, right, when to lean in
100%
to those support systems.
I mean, you, speaking of leaning in, you literally read my mind. I was going to ask you if there were any programs or things that you've gone through at the state level or personal level, education level, where you kind of found a very supportive group, or you found something that just felt like you clicked, that helped you along. You know, some people find it in like their master's program, and there's the California Women Lead programs, and you know, some of them feel a little bit alienating, and some of them feel a little bit great. So that was going to be my next question.
Well, I did do that leadership program. That was like right before I decided to run, which for me was what I needed to push me, right? And say like, okay, I am ready and I am capable of doing it. So I'm grateful to them. I'm still very connected to the organization. But there are a variety of women, you know, groups at the state level that have done similar things for other women. Like there's Emerge California that motivates women across political spectrums to run for office. So there are those existing groups. For me also, I think there's just, we all have kind of different chapters in our life depending on where we're at. And I also did a Harvard leadership program that was very, very insightful early in my tenure as a council member, which helped me become, I believe, a better leader.
That in those programs, it almost seems like your peer group starts to change, and peer mentorship, has that been something that you've experienced, or has it been more vertical to the things that have really encouraged you to step forward? Has it?
I think it's been a little bit of both. You know, I have my peers that are a great support system. And then there are folks that are, you know, much more wiser and have much more experience than I do, that I definitely look up to, both men and women, that have been in my life very instrumental in guiding me in this leadership journey that I've experienced.
What do you do when you get tired?
Oh man, I do love to sleep. No, but yeah, no, that is a constant. This is, I will say, a 24/7 job. It's always constant, for me at least, the way that I serve. It's like I'm constantly thinking of, okay, what else can I do
Your soul's
to
in
help?
it.
Yeah. But what do? I try to enjoy the company of my husband.
We all try.
Yeah. Like, you know,
Sorry,
take time. What we like to do together, and we've learned to enjoy golfing together, which is awesome. I'm like, I never thought that I would like golfing, but it's actually really relaxing and just a fun, you know, sport to forget about everything, especially if it's on a nice course and on a nice, you know, day. It can definitely just be a good way to relax, and even when you're tired, you're not really tired.
It disengages your brain kind of and engages it in something else.
Yeah, which is really hard to do. You know,
really
for me,
is hard to do. Well, if
to turn myself off.
100%, your heart is so much in it, and for these roles and representing especially such a large district as your heart should be in it. And in order to keep up that work that you do so well, there has to be things that you do to disengage, to recharge yourself.
Yeah.
You know, nobody does anything good for anybody else running on empty.
Yeah. Oh yeah, that is very true, which is why just even during the holidays, I took about a week off right before Thanksgiving, because that was important, you know, for me. I've made it a tradition to spend time with my family and take that week off where there's no work. And that was really good.
That's an imperative point, because I think as women, we get into this weird grind where we're I have to do all the invisible labor that women do, and then I also have to do it just as good, do work just as good as the boys, do it just as hard, do it just as often, and
Or even harder sometimes.
yeah, or even harder because
Like,
then
even
I have
harder.
to excel.
Yeah.
How do you combat your internal competitor, like your how do you tell your girl inside, all right, just chill, we're gonna get there. We don't have to light everything on fire yet. We're gonna just go one step at a time.
Yeah, no, that's a struggle, but it's trying to, get balanced. And my husband tries to help, because he knows,
Yeah.
when I'm in that space. And so he's very good at identifying when he needs to kind of, give me that pep talk and be like, you're going to be fine. Like, the earth is not going to shatter. And
It's incredible to have a partner that's supportive.
So I feel very, very blessed.
That's fantastic to hear. And I think being a woman in a male-dominated industry, or in your case in government that is male-dominated, not only by numbers but by decision makers and the basis that decisions are even made on, it can feel very isolating. So having a support group that isn't just your partner, but those other support groups that you've talked about, like family and friends and cohorts and leadership programs, is so super important. Is there a place that you have gone to try to find support or to find others in a similar situation that really hasn't worked out, that you've had to be like, this doesn't feel right, I'm going to have to go? And you don't have to be specific about the place, just...
I think that there's been instances in my journey where I have felt like, maybe this is not the place. Absolutely. You encounter those because, again, you speak to the fact that politics is still very heavily dominated by men. And so sometimes it's hard to break that. I do feel like now in the legislature that's changed a bit because, as I mentioned, there's more women. And so now I feel like there's more people to talk to, like other women that may be experiencing the same challenges that I am, and we can relate. When I was on the council, very different story. There were no women. And so it was really, really tough, because there is when I was on the council, there's still a bro factor. And it is very hard to kind of break that bro factor.
How do you navigate that? How do you keep
tough.
showing up every day?
You just have to. You have to show up, ready to work hard. And I would even argue work even harder than them to get at least what they get. You know what I mean? And so that's always been a challenge. But what motivates me is that, hey, I have a seat at the table and I'm equally as capable and as deserving to have, a voice and the ability to advocate on behalf of the people that I represent.
I love that perspective and that strength.
So
I hope that, whoever's listening or watching can draw on that, because really sometimes it's so discouraging, as you well know. How would you encourage... At what point would you encourage people to get involved? And not even just women, like age-wise, do you think that it's something that people should be exposing their kids to, like the political arena, just to kind of understand how it works, because it seems very complex?
Yeah, no, I think it's important for folks to be involved at every age. I think being involved in sports is good. It helps you learn how to work with people. And I don't think, like, sometimes even parents think about it, but when I think about and reflect back in my life, I'm like, man, I did a lot of things that required me to work as a team. And I've taken those skills to help me in the spaces that I've navigated. But I do believe, I'm a strong believer of leadership development at a very young age. That's why when I was on the council, I actually had a young council members program. I wanted to give young kids in high school the opportunity to learn about local government. And so actually, similarly, we just launched our program for the state capitol, and I will be starting the program. We're doing selection of applicants in the next few weeks, but our program is the Young Legislators Program for Assembly District 27. And
that's
so
cool.
we're selecting students from high school to be able to learn about state government, how it all works, and even beyond, what we do at the Capitol, how it's all connected with our everyday life, which people fail to realize. Like everything we see and touch, like there's some kind of regulation, there's something connected to government.
Some weird rule about it.
Right? Because you have been intimately involved in the role that that you've had. Being involved in advocacy.
Yeah. How do you get somebody involved in those programs? Like, I have ideas, I have people. Is it like a curated selection now and then eventually it'll kind of open up more? Or is there some website?
I think that there's a lot of work to be done in that realm. I kind of do in my own little world, right? But I do believe that there's an incredible opportunity to create more venues and opportunities to get involved, because I will tell you, there is no shortage of things that people can be involved with. You would be surprised at how much I struggled when I was a council member to get people from my district to get involved on the District 1 committee, on the Planning Commission, on the Bike Advisory Board, on the Parks Commission, on the Youth Commission. There are so many commissions out there locally, at the county level, at the city level. There's state level positions. Like, we need to do a better job of, demystifying being involved.
I 100%,
and
1,000% support
and
that.
I also think, more importantly, and so maybe that's something that we can work on together, but the state has an incredible number of state boards that oversee, create even policy through regulatory, engagement. And so we don't see a lot of Central Valley folks or women in those spaces. So we got to, figure out how do we demystify getting more involved. And, it can start by volunteering. You don't have to be on a board, right? But it could start by volunteering, and then that can develop if it's a passion of someone. And that's what I would encourage. You have to figure out what your passion and purpose is, because you will do it much better.
Exactly.
Right?
Well, and you hit the nail on the head. People don't get it. And I don't mean that. People don't understand. People don't understand. What they don't understand is how all of the things that happen in the Capitol or even outside of the Capitol relating to the Capitol are related to the things that we deal with every single moment of our lives.
Everything.
And by just getting involved, contacting the offices of their representatives, they're a lot more accessible, I think, than people realize. How do we encourage specifically more women to reach out and be like, hey, I have an issue. Can you help me?
No, and I think it's incumbent upon elected officials. That's why I like to do a lot of community events. We always participate in resource booths because we want to be accessible to the community and let them know, men and women alike, that they can contact us. And if they have an issue with the state agency, because people don't even know that they can call our office, say they have an issue with DMV or an issue with the unemployment agency, right? Any Department of Insurance, if they're trying to get a business license at the state level or whatnot, they can call our office and we can help them navigate through sometimes what is a really big bureaucracy, right? For kind of the average ordinary person.
It's like a wet ball of yarn, trying to pick through it.
Yeah, so we try to do, our best to be out in the community so that they know that they can call us. We have constituent services, and we directly engage these agencies that sometimes are very hard to reach to be able to address some of the challenges that our local constituents have.
That's really good to know. Some of those things I didn't even think, you could reach out to a representative for.
Yeah.
That you just fell into the abyss.
So if you have any issues, feel free to call us.
Right. Well, thank you. Sometimes it's it's a challenge anyway. Your career has been challenging, not challenging for you, but challenging from a perspective that you are literally paving a way. You are not taking a road less traveled. You are literally paving a new road. I just kind of go back to what other things do you do that help keep you energized? Do you like to travel?
Yeah, I do like to travel a bit. As was mentioning before the show, that I did do some travel earlier this year, went to Mexico City. I don't get to travel as much as I would like to, just because, the job is a lot of work and the district demands a lot of me. But when I do have the opportunity, we like to, even if it's a short getaway, be able to do that, on a weekend. But I did go to Mexico City, as I shared earlier, which was my first time. And what an incredible city that if people have not visited and want to see what a big metropolitan city is, of 26 million people, phenomenal food. And it's not just Mexican food. There's all kinds of different cuisines, great shopping, great art, music. It's just an awesome place to visit.
I've never heard anything bad about Mexico City, and so now I'm considering it for a vacation.
Yeah.
I think that would be amazing. I haven't been yet.
So, yeah, it's a good trip. You can't cover everything in a few days, so... But, doing a visit, I think, would be amazing.
Well, and it's in close proximity to like ruins and other things
that
you can kind of
There's
get to and explore.
There's so many day trips that can be done. Yeah, so it's really cool.
I have to look into that.
Yeah.
What would you say to other women looking to get on this same path as you?
If they are, please call me. Well, please call me. No, I think that, we need to be confident in the fact that we have the ability to be in elected office, to have a seat at the table, because that's what we need. We need to be at the table to be able to be part of the discussions that are happening, that are shaping literally every single day the future of the city, the future of the county, the future of the state of California, and I would argue also the future of, our entire country. And so if we want to be able to shape that, we should want to get involved. And I think that you have to surround yourself with people that support you, and you can't pay attention to those folks that say, oh, maybe you're too young. Oh, well, are you sure you have a family? Because I have heard, I don't have small babies, but I have heard other women get told, like, what are you going to do with your kids? Well, hello, what about the partner?
Right. There's somebody else who's responsible for these kids too?
You would be surprised, but people still to this day, right?
Who's watching your kids?
Yeah.
What do you mean? Nobody. They're with their dad. He's a parent.
Right? And so I think that women can't get caught up in that, right? You have to be confident in the fact that if you feel like that's your calling, that you have something to give, that you should seek out mentorship from people that maybe have been there. Don't be shy to ask someone, hey, how did you get there? How did you do it? Because I would be very surprised if they wouldn't be willing to share. I think most people would be willing to give a piece of advice. And then, start getting involved in your community in something that you're passionate about. Because when you're passionate, I think that especially if you decide to run for office, it makes a total difference in the way that you speak about the issues that you care about. And so, and I would encourage, people to do leadership training. There's a lot of leadership, even here locally, right? There's like Leadership Fresno. That's a good, network here locally too. There's like the Hope program that I mentioned that I participated. There's Emerge also that is open to all women of all different backgrounds. And so, seeking those kind of leadership training programs, because we're never too young or too old to do those types of, programs, to be able to learn and grow.
That's a very valid point.
And then surround yourself by people that are going to push you to the next level and support you even though in tough times. Because believe me, when I say I'm like being in this space is not easy, you know, there's going to be really good days, but then there are going to be those tough days. And it's those good days that should keep you motivated to continue doing the work. But again, feeling that purpose within you and knowing, that's what like keeps me getting up every single morning and saying, hey, I'm doing this because I got to make a difference in my community. And I got to make sure that we get the resources that we need. I got to make sure we open up the hospital. We got to make sure the people that, you know, were lost everything because of the floods during the last winter, that they get taken care of. Those are the things that every morning wake me up and say, Esmeralda, you got to get to work, because there's a lot to do, especially here in our valley. The needs are tremendous, you know. And so if people are passionate and want to see a different valley, you know, we just learned yesterday the sad news of that young woman that got murdered by her ex-boyfriend. Domestic violence, right? Yeah. And it's like, we have a lot of work to do in our community.
Yeah.
And so there's no shortage of that. And so if you just have an inch of desire to see your community be better, then get involved. And there's nothing, you know, too big or too small for us to do.
Nobody should ever have to worry about that. And those are very wise words. Thank you very much. Really appreciate you sharing everything. And I know this is only round one. I will trouble you after this for some of the resources so I can share them.
Yeah.
And I'm very, very grateful for your time. And thank you for joining and sharing your story. And I will definitely be sharing your number, maybe not your personal number, but I'll be sharing your number with some other girls that I know that really want to get involved and make a difference.
Yeah.
Because your passion is palpable and people need that.
Yeah, no, I appreciate you, Hilary, for obviously creating this space too. I think that it's important that women talk about, you know, a variety of things to encourage other women to be able to share, so that maybe people don't think it's that scary to do what. If I can do it, I'm like, believe me, I'm like, if I can do it, you know, a young girl, farm worker kid from the city of Lindsay, you know, I feel like there's a lot of women out there that can also step up and do it. You know, you don't got to be rich. You just got to have a lot of drive, be willing to work hard, and have purpose in what you do, right? And I'm sure there's a lot of people in our community, right? And
100%.
a lot of women.
100%.
So it's just going to take us to give them that little push and encouragement to get involved.
Well, thank you for that.
Yeah.
I think that your passion really does shine through and is very encouraging. It's inspirational for me, and I
know we got to
feel very lucky to know you.
So
Shh, don't say that out loud.
But honored to be your third guest. So,
Thank you very much. I'm very grateful for you.
Yeah.
And thank you for all the work that you do.
And that we'll do together.
Yes.
Yes.